Hello everyone and welcome to Bullpen Session with Salina Stockade manager Droddy. Bullpen Session is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Salina manager questions about the Stockade, baseball or sports in general, or just seek JD's wisdom about life events that are going on out there. In this week's episode, we learn a little bit about the coach and the team in general as he talks to us about team updates. He shares with us a couple of player stories that really stand out in his mind, and the coach tells us if he has another career out there for him. So let's get right to Bullpen Session. Well, welcome to our first show with JD Droddy. JD, first of all, let's begin. Are there team updates that you'd like to provide that's going on with the organization right now?
We had a player go down last night. C.J. Epperson, playing center field, jumped for a ball, came down wrong on his foot, rolled his ankle, and he's going to be out for a significant amount of time. So we're going to have to send him home to recuperate and bring somebody in. Are you looking,
who would wind up taking his spot at the moment in center field?
For tonight, until we get a replacement, Roche Woodard will move from left field to center field, and Stephen Taft tonight is going to play left field. Logan Trowbridge can also play left field. So those two guys will fill in until we can get a regular center fielder.
Well, for our first show, I just wanted to ask you some questions so people got to know a little bit more about you. So, first of all, tell me what interested you about taking this position with the Stockade?
Well, I've been with the Pecos League in one capacity or another since it started. I got involved because the league brought professional baseball to small towns in New Mexico, and I was living in one of those small towns in New Mexico at the time, and I knew it was going to be a bit of a struggle for them, and I just wanted to help any way I can, and that's been my motivation all along. I tend to put the league ahead of my team a lot because without the league there is no team. So I'm a Pecos guy. I'm proudly admit I'm a Pecos guy. So that's just what got me started. That's what still motivates me.
So they came looking for a manager and asked you, and you were happy to take the spot.
Are you talking about for
this season? Yes.
Oh, for this season. Yeah. Well, I've retired before. For those folks who know me, I retired after the 14 season when I managed Trinidad, and I was a league adjudicator for a year, and then the league has made a decision to start moving into bigger and better places. We're moving into 5 California cities this year. Replacing a couple of high A teams in Bakersfield and High Desert. We're moving into Monterey. We got a road team operating out of Hollywood. But last year was the first step in that process of moving out of the very small markets into the bigger markets. And we moved into Tucson and moved into 11,800 seat stadium that has hosted 2 AAA teams, and also hosted spring training for the White Sox and the Diamondbacks before they moved to Talking Stick where they are now. So a beautiful stadium. I used to go there every March to watch Major League spring training, and the commissioner wanted to get the league off to a good start there. And there are plenty of guys who know as much or a lot more maybe about baseball than I do, but he likes the way I handle off-field stuff and logistics and the quite frankly the diplomacy of dealing with local markets and so forth. So he asked me if I'd come back, and so I agreed to come back for 1 year and retired again, and that was supposed to be it. And then when this opportunity came up, he came calling again, and I said, okay, one more time, because this is a great opportunity for the Pecos League to get some exposure for some guys, and also to get our league some exposure. We play good baseball in the Pecos League, and a lot of people don't know that. But so I agreed to come back for this because, as I said, I'm a league guy, Pecos League guy.
A couple weeks into the season, what are some things that you've learned about your players, both as players and as men?
Well, Some of these players I knew already, knew very well. I've managed them before, some of them. Some of them I've played against. Some of them that don't come from the Pecos League, I was not familiar with. We talked before the season started about the fact that we're going to have challenges, and we can't let that get in the way of what we're trying to do. Bad things will happen. The road's tough as it is. We're always the visiting team. We never get the last at bat, and we just have to put all that out of our heads and play. And they're doing that very well. So I have learned we have good character on the team, which is an important thing for me. And character has a lot of meanings, a lot of aspects to it, a lot of dimensions. But these guys are showing it. They play hard. One of the players from Winnipeg, the day after we played them and put up 14 hits and 10 runs on them, told some of our guys that we were the scrappiest team they'd ever faced, and that meant a lot.
Because you only had a couple of weeks to get this team in order and really start getting into the season, what were some things that you tried to accomplish or goals that you set for the organization?
For the year?
Yes.
Well, first of all, we want to be as competitive as possible. We want to make the American Association glad they have us filling in the spot. We don't want to be free wins for anybody. So every team, if they beat us, they're going to earn it, and we're trying to do that. Not to be walkovers ever, and also to win our share of games. We won our second game. We haven't won since, but we believe we will. Last Friday, I told my guys as we were leaving Kansas City, spring training is officially over. We've now had the same amount of spring training and the same amount of games that the rest of the league had during spring training. So starting yesterday, I just sort of consider that the beginning of our regular season. And we need to go out and compete. And we will, I like to stick with guys, give them plenty of chance. But like all the other teams in the league, if we have guys who aren't performing at the level we need, we'll have to replace them. But I do probably give players more of a chance than most managers. I know some managers in this league whose names I won't mention, but I've known them for a long time, that will cut a guy after 3 at-bats, and I'll never do that. That doesn't tell me anything, So I promised every player to get at least 3 series to show what he's done, and we just started our 4th series yesterday, so now's the time the guy's going to have to step up or step out.
Because of the fact that most of these guys are in their early 20s, what are some things that you do to try to build a relationship with them?
I've been working with early 20-year-olds since I was an early 20-year-old. I was in the military 20 years, so it just kind of comes natural. Despite being 73, I still sometimes think like a lot of 20-year-olds, and I try to be encouraging as much as possible. Sometimes a guy needs a kick in the pants, and when that happens, I try to do it privately. I don't try to show guys up. And I had a player tell me yesterday, which made me feel good actually, that he liked playing for me. He played for other guys, and he always felt that he had to look over his shoulder, and with me, they don't have to look over their shoulder. I'm transparent. I try to be totally honest with them. I won't feed them a line of bologna just to make them feel good, but on the other hand, I will encourage them. I encourage players a lot. I'm one of the more vocal managers that you'll see in the dugout. I talk to our players out on the field a lot, and most managers don't do that, but that's just my style, and it works for me. It may not work for other people, but it works for me. But it's not something I calculate, say, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z. It's just the way I deal with people in general, and younger people in particular.
While this is the American Association is a new league to many of the players, you're pretty familiar with this league as it is. Is there one or two success stories of your own that really kind of stand out for you?
Yeah, there are actually a couple. I have sent quite a few guys to this league in the Can-Am and the Frontier League, places like that. But two that actually stand out for me. One is Kevin McGovern, who shut us down the other day when we played him. He pitches for Winnipeg, and he was the winning pitcher in last year's championship game against Wichita. And by the way, the guy I considered being their most effective pitcher on the other side for Wichita also played for me in Trinidad. So I had guys on both sides, but Kevin had one shot, and I can't remember if it was American Association or Can-Am or somewhere, and he had this really terrible ERA. And it turned out that some major league scout, as I understand it, had tried to get him to change his arm delivery to a side armor, and that's not Kevin. So that's what he was doing, and he had this terrible, start. And so his agent called me and asked me if I would give him a shot. And I thought, well, yeah, I'll bring him to spring training and see what he's got. Well, over the winter, Kevin, on his own, went back to the way he knew how to pitch and sort of rehabilitated himself. So the first day of spring training, one of the things I do is I take all the pitchers and they throw a bullpen for me, and I check their velocity at that point and what they have. And after about 2 pitches, my reaction was, whoa, I mean, this kid's got stuff. And he was my opening night starter that year, and I called his agent and said, for the game, and I said, Kevin's going to be my opening night starter. And his reaction was, really? I said, yeah, really. I mean, he's really good. And as the season progressed, he's got better and better. And his agent told me one day, he kind of laughed, said, I guess I'm going to start paying attention to Kevin. And we ended up sending him to Lincoln 3 weeks to go in the season. But his last 5 games for me in the Pecos League, he struck out 55 guys in 5 games. And he came here, and he was here meaning the association, he was a Lincoln, and his second week here, he was pitcher of the week, and they later traded him to Winnipeg, and hence he pitched in the championship game last year, but he's done really well. And despite the fact he shut us out the other night, I was still very proud of him. And the other guy is a small left-hander named Josh Tolles. Josh played in this league until this year. He played in 15 and 16 for Kansas City, and John Mazzarelli, the manager over there, who I had some relationship, I tried to get him to take him, and he wasn't really interested. I think it was because of his size. But from the left side, 91, 93, really, really good. And I actually acquired Josh by trade just as Kevin was going out the door. I brought Josh in the door in Trinidad. And I kept bugging Mazzarelli. I said, I tell you, John, he can play in that league. So he went to a tryout that the Diamondbacks had. And they brought like 50 guys in, and they signed one. But Josh, in that tryout, faced 3 American Association and 2 Frontier League guys. He struck 3 of them out, and 2 of them dribbled to second base. So I'm back with John. I said, John, listen, here's what happened. So he said, okay, I'll give him a shot. And he went there and he did great, but that's only part of the story. Matter of fact, later in his first season, I was watching his stats and saw how he was doing. And, he's from Australia. And before I left out a big part of the story, after the 14 season, before he came to Kansas City, that year, that winter, he pitched in the Australian Baseball League for Adelaide, and they were runner-up in the league. But Josh set and still holds the ABL record for wins in a season, and he did it without starting a game. He did it as a reliever.
Wow.
And so then he came to Kansas City, and I saw he was doing great. So just to tweak John just a little bit, I texted him and said, "Hey John, how's Tolles doing?" And he just texted me back and says, "I love little Ozzy." And by little Ozzy, Josh is like 5'6", and that's why people weren't interested in him. But this past March in the World Baseball Classic, he was on the roster of the Australian national team, and not as one of the come in and go out guys. He was on the 25 or 28 man roster, whatever they had. He was on that roster for the World Baseball Classic, and apparently he made a big impression in Japan because they offered him a lot of money. So he's pitching in Japan this year. He's not with Kansas City anymore. But those two guys just kind of stand out. But I've seen other guys here into the Can-Am that do well. Stephen Borkowski went to the Can-Am last year after our season with Tucson. He stepped right into their starting rotation. Did really well. He won a game in each round of the playoffs, including the penultimate game, the one right before the championship. And in one of those, he struck out 13, 8 complete innings, and 129 pitches, which he never did for me in Tucson because I wouldn't let him. I had him on a 115-pound pitch count because I knew he was going somewhere, and I wanted him to have an arm when he got there. But so there's really three. Of course, one of them is to the Can-Am, but Can-Am and American Association, they're pretty equivalent in my mind.
A lot of people, I think you would agree, don't really give the Pecos League much credit, and I think Salina here has shown this season that you guys have been competitive in virtually every game. What are some things you would say to people that have doubts about the talent of the league?
Well, there are a couple of things. One, and I used to visit these chat rooms and where we got pilloried all the time, and mostly by people who have never seen a Pecos League game. They're from Pennsylvania or somewhere, and they've never seen a Pecos League game in their life. So for those people, I just say, you don't know what you're talking about. There are some things about the league. We started in 2011. It grew out of an older league that had some different practices, and the new league adopted some of those practices, which were not good. We had some trouble, and we were a startup league, and so, as they like to say in politics, mistakes were made. But that was 2011. Each year it gets better and better and better, and each year we send more and more guys up, either to affiliated ball or to here. In 13 and 14, I sent 3 guys to affiliated ball from Trinidad. One of them's in AAA now. The other 2 ended up with arm problems. One for the Phillies, one for the Padres, and they're out of baseball. But it was arm problems. But the one guy that was in 13 he's in AAA this year, and has played in the Arizona Fall League, which is where they send their good guys. And interestingly enough, I've had guys who throw 95, 96. He threw 83 to 85. But he's a side armor with impeccable command and great stuff, and it's all about getting guys out. And you get guys out, sooner or later people pay attention.
Last season you won the championship in Tucson. How did you go about building that team, and what was that like, winning a title for you?
Well, it was, in some ways, it was a great relief. I thought we would win it in 14. But in 14, the last 3 weeks of the season, 5 of my top 7 players departed for higher leagues, and including one of the pitchers that we sent to the Phillies in the 8th inning of the final regular season game. The scout was there, and at his request, I let the guy pitch early because the scout had a plane to catch, and he asked me if he could see him in the 2nd inning, and I said sure. He was normally a closer, 96 mile an hour fastball, and after the 2 innings, he said, "I've seen all I need, thanks." And about 25 minutes later, I got a call from the commissioner saying, "We've just traded." His name was Rodesky. We just traded Rodesky to Philadelphia. So I said, great, right before the playoffs. So, but which is fine because that's why I'm in this. But You asked specifically about Tucson and how I went about it. The way not this team because I only had a week and a half, but I did build Tucson's team this year, and I'll build High Desert's team this year. And I start in October building a team. And the first thing I do is I take the All-American list from NAIA through Division I. And I go see who was drafted, and I cross them off the list. And the ones that weren't drafted, I go look and see if they are currently with an association team or Can-Am. And if they are, I cross them off the list. The rest of them I call. And last year we ended up with 4 All-Americans on the team. This year Tucson started with 3. Actually they started with 2 because Jesse Baker was one of them, and he was the catcher for the Stockade, and I swiped him at midnight one night right before the season started because I needed him to catch, and he's doing really well here. His numbers are very good. He's hitting 286 as of right now, which is not bad for a new kid.
It's just starting the season out too.
Right. And he's got a lot of power. But after I get all the, I talk to all the All-Americans, and then I go through roster by roster by roster looking. I'm a numbers guy. People send me videos. If you're out there, don't send me a video. I don't look at them. I don't care. Videos of a hitter are usually in batting practice. They don't tell me anything. A pitcher, they're usually taken from 40 yards away, and I see a little spot. I don't care about the video. I look at numbers, and I'm pretty good at translating numbers from where they are to where they're going to be. And I just build a team one player at a time. And by mid-May, when spring training starts, I've been very fortunate to have some really powerful teams.
When that last hour was recorded last season, what did that feel like for you?
Oh, that was great. By the way, Jesse Baker scored the last run.
Oh, nice.
And we were playing against Trinidad, who I used to manage. And Trinidad had a lot of players on the team that I brought in to the league, either in 14 when I managed them, or I also helped build Trinidad's 15 team. So I had a lot of players. And we were a team in Tucson last year that before the season was over, including the playoffs, we won 55 games, we lost 15. And I don't know how many, but a huge number of those we were down in the 8th or 9th inning, which nobody really seemed to care. We always felt we were going to win. And we went into the final game, the bottom of the 9th, we were down 4-1 in the final game. And there was literally nobody in the dugout who didn't think we were going to win. And we did. We did win. We ended up loading the bases, and a relief pitcher for Trinidad, who I brought into the league, threw a wild pitch, and Jesse Baker ran home with his arms high in the air, and the celebration was on. But it felt so great. It was more relief than anything because I was so close in 14, and my team I wasn't. I don't play. I hadn't hit a single ball. I stay in the dugout, put the team together, and try to put them in the best position to play as good a baseball as they can. So it's not me, it's my players. But I was very relieved because we had set the Pecos League record in the regular season for wins, and also for the least number of losses. And that's important, but it would have meant nothing had we not won the championship. So it was a lot of relief, but it felt really good.
When you first became a manager, you only had the 1 year as an assistant manager prior to that.
Right.
So were there people that you kind of emulated their managerial style or incorporated into your own?
Well, I don't have a background of playing professional baseball. So everything I know about managing, I learned intellectually, watching lots of other managers. Taking mental notes. Like in 15, when I was the league adjudicator and wasn't managing, I probably watched on average at least a game and a half a day, so at least 10 games a week. I watched all the Rockies games that were broadcast on TV on the satellite that I get. But I also watched, the ESPN Game of the Week. I watched everything, and I watched managers. I'm a great admirer of Joe Torre. I'm an admirer of John Madden. A lot of the managers that I watch and I take notes. And what really helped me in developing was also having the experts in the booth to explain why the manager was doing what he did, and rather than me just seeing it and saying, well, I wonder why he did that. Well, they'll explain why he did that. So I take mental notes, and just there's no one particular manager that I say, oh yeah, that's the guy I emulate, because I pick up what I can from anybody, including other Pegasus League managers. And here this year I'll watch these American Association managers, even though I don't plan to manage anymore. I'm a lifelong learner, and if I can learn something from Pete Rose Jr., I'm gonna try to learn it.
So watching all those Rockies games, that means Walt Weiss was a big influence over you there.
Yeah, Walt. I thought Walt was a very good manager. I thought he was a better manager than his record indicates.
Tough situation for him.
But yeah, it was a tough situation. While he was there, they really didn't have the pitching. They had position players that I wouldn't have traded with anybody. When they had Arenado at third, they had Tulowitzki at short, they had LeMahieu at second base, they had Carlos Gonzalez, they had Charlie Blackmon. They had great position players. They didn't have any pitching, and pitching is what wins, quite frankly. So yeah, Walt was in a tough situation, but he handled it with class. And so I admire Walt a lot. I've never met him, don't know him, but I admire him a lot for the way he managed and the way he conducted himself.
So you spent 20 years in the Air Force, and you've worked as a lawyer, as a college professor, as a college administrator, and now as a manager. Is there a fifth career out there for you?
No, not really. I have hobbies. I'm a composer. I write stage plays. I've written a ballet I've actually written two. One of them's been produced so far. The other, which is, in my opinion, a better ballet, several companies or universities were interested in it, but I learned a valuable lesson. All of them declined for the same reason, and it is that it took too many male dancers. There are not enough male ballet dancers outside the really big companies. So the next time I write one, I'll remember that. It never occurred to me that would be an issue. So, but I compose music. I've had 3 children's musicals produced.
Wow.
So, and I just sit around and compose music to pass time,
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, but it's not a career, It's just it's something I do, and I get it performed a lot and stuff like that. But that's, that doesn't pay the rent or anything. It's just something I do for self-satisfaction.
Well, so for our last question this week, what's a talent that you have that maybe not many people know about?
Well, I don't know if I have any that. Quite a few people, because of the exposure of people like you, and since I've been in baseball, know about the music and the ballets and all that. So without that would have been my answer. But other than that, I don't know. I just I have a lot of interest. Whether or not I have talent in them or not is for others to judge. But I have a lot of interest. So that's the best I can answer that.
That's awesome. Thanks for joining us this week, Jay.
All right. Thanks a lot.
We want to thank J.D. Droddy for joining us on Bullpen Session this week. If you have your own questions for the Salina Stockade manager, please send them to us at askjd@minorleaguesportsreport.com. That's askjd@minorleaguesportsreport.com. Please have your questions to us by Sunday evening so we can give the skipper a little time to review them before we record the show. I'm Rob Paneer, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll see you next